allowing gay and lesbian Americans to serve in the Coast Guard openly will remove a significant barrier to those Coast Guardsmen who are already serving capably and who have been forced to hide or even lie about their sexual orientation. Forcing these Coast Guardsmen to compromise our core values of honor, respect, and devotion to duty and to continue to serve is a choice they should not have to make.
Legislative repeal affords us the time and structured process needed to effectively implement this significant change within our armed forces. I assess the risk to readiness, effectiveness, and cohesion of the Navy to be low. Based on my professional judgment and informed by the inputs from our Navy, I recommend repeal of 10 U.S. Code 654.
Some ask, why not wait for some more timely opportunity? There is never a perfect time. Change challenges organizations. However, contrary to expectations, this may be a better time than one might expect. Periods of reduced activity can create conditions wherein the challenges associated with making a change of any kind seems enormous. By contrast, in times of conflict, the focus is on the war effort. U.S. service members are devoted to defending our nation and their comrades. When they are engaged in combat operations, they rely on the warrior ethos of their fellow service men and women. The character and capabilities of the individual become the focal point, not presumed or known attitudes or lifestyles.
In the final analysis, I'm faced with two questions. The first is, could we? Could we implement repeal at this time? The answer is yes. The second question is, should we at this time? Based on what I know about the very tough fight in Afghanistan, the almost singular focus of our combat forces as they train up and deploy into theater, the necessary, tightly woven culture of those combat forces that we are asking so much of at this time, and finally the direct feedback from the survey, my recommendation is that we should not implement repeal at this time.
General Casey, what is your personal opinion about repeal at this time?
Senator, I believe that the law should be repealed eventually. And as I read through the report, it seemed to me that the report called into question the basic presumption that underpins the law, and that is that the presence of a gay or lesbian service member creates a unacceptable risk to good order and discipline. I don't believe that's true, and from the surveys it appears to me that a large number of our service members don't believe that's true either. So eventually I believe it should be repealed. The question for me, as I've said, is one of timing.
Repeal at this time. If you, Senator, if you calibrate this, if you allow us to begin a process of training and education, but do not mandate that it happen in the very near term, I believe not in 2011, but 2012 at the earliest, that would be an acceptable approach to me.
We talked yesterday about the fact that that only a third of the people responded to this survey, and I have felt that the reason for that was that they weren't really asked the right questions. I mean, they never asked the question, do you think we should repeal? Don't ask, don't tell. Can anyone tell me why that question shouldn't have been asked? Or let me ask you, General Casey, should that have been asked?
Senator, I don't think so. I don't think the survey should have been a referendum of a poll of our soldiers. This isn't a democracy in the military, and I believe the way that the survey was executed gave us sufficient information to make our judgments.
Anyone else think that the question of should it be repealed should have been asked? How about you, General Amos?
Senator, during my confirmation hearing, I was asked a similar question, and I made the statement at that time that I was pretty confident after having gone through all the questions myself that I would come away as a service chief with a real sense for whether they support it or not. So, sir, I'm with the Secretary of Defense and my colleagues. I don't think that we needed a referendum-type question on that. I got the information I needed.
Do you believe that the implementing legislation, if in fact this moves forward, should allow for the chiefs, the service chiefs, any of you to certify? I asked the Secretary yesterday about whether or not that ought to be a requirement He said that it should not.
Senator, as I said to Senator Lieberman, I am very comfortable with my ability to provide input to Secretary Gates and to the chairman that will be listened to and considered. And so you could put it in there, but I don't think it's necessary. I will make sure that my views are heard. The other thing, if you put that in the law, I think it undercuts the Goldwater Nichols that we've been trying to put the chairman as the principal provider of military advice. So, I mean, that's something for the committee to consider.
So I'm very comfortable with the access and the input that we've had, and in fact, as the report came along, I could see the changes that that we were recommending. So I have no concerns whatsoever about my advice not being heard.
None of us will be shrinking violets in this activity. We all feel like we have the access that we need and the opportunity that we'll need in order to give advice.
It seems to me that for implementation to work, the military needs a lot of planning and training and changing of regulation time to make sure it's done right. And none of that will begin to occur until there's a certainty that the law will change. And since most of you, if not all, share the view that the law should be repealed, but some of you believe it just shouldn't be implemented right now, doesn't it make sense for the Congress to pass the pending legislation right now? And that way you could lay down some of the groundwork necessary for change, which might be good to do anyway, given the concerns of court action. But you wouldn't have the flexibility not to implement right away. And in that context, I moved to what Secretary Gates said yesterday.
Until all the training has been completed, until the service chiefs are comfortable that the risks to unit cohesion and to combat effectiveness of a change had been addressed to their satisfaction and to my satisfaction, I would not sign the certification. In other words, my view is that before the certification is signed, everything has to be done to get ready. It's not something that I would start, that I would certify while it was still in process, as it were.
And I'd like in that spirit to ask each of you if Secretary Gates' comments alleviate some, if not all, of your concerns.
I would agree with that statement, Senator, and I would also agree what I've said several times here already. I'm very comfortable with my ability to get my opinions and advice to Secretary Gates and have them listened to.
I agree with that statement, sir.
I agree with that statement.
Senator, I absolutely do agree.
Likewise.
I agree too, Senator.
My worry is that the courts may actually move in a much more hasty and chaotic fashion, and that were the Congress to act now and put in place direction as to how we proceed with the repeal, we could actually do it in a way that keeps faith with what you all have outlined today. And that's my appeal to my colleagues in the Senate, that we actually act before this session of Congress. So let me end on this note with a final question. I'd just like to again go down the line and ask each and every one of you, if we change this policy, can your branch in the U.S. military make it work? And perhaps I'll start this end of the line and start with Admiral Papp.
Yes, sir,
General
Senator.
Casey.
I have complete confidence that we could make it work.
As I indicated earlier, we would execute thoroughly, professionally, and with conviction.
Senator, as I indicated in my written and verbal statement, that we will follow the law and execute it faithfully.
I concur.
We can make it work, as do my most senior commanders believe that as well.
I believe we can implement the policy and will implement the policy with moderate risk to our short-term effectiveness and long-term health of the force.